personal story segment tonight. Donald Trump says he has narrowed his VP choice down to 5 individuals. One of them, Newt Gingrich, joins us now from Washington. Any interest in the job, Mr. Speaker?
Well, I mean, you'd have to look at it very seriously, of course.
Do you speak to Donald Trump on a regular basis?
No, I talk to him occasionally. I talk to the campaign people a lot more.
Does he call you and say, what should I do on this item or that item?
Rarely. He's not a guy who seeks that kind of advice very much.
Have you discussed with him foreign policy, domestic policy? Have you sat down at dinner and said, look, this is how I see the world?
No, I regard Donald as an old friend. Calista and I belong to his club here in Washington. We've regularly talked with him for the last five or 6 years. During the campaign, occasionally I said I do more of it by email than I do by phone. But we've communicated on a routine basis with the campaign and with Trump and his family.
But when you say communicate, nobody knows what that means. Do they ask you questions? Do you volunteer things? Sometimes I get questions. Sometimes I volunteer things.
So
you say, like, don't call O'Reilly a so-and-so and, you know, that kind of thing?
I find, as you know, because you know him well, I find that kind of advice gets you nowhere.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say how much Donald Trump processes. He listens. He's a fairly good listener.
Right.
But you don't know how many. Now, all right, so that would be an interesting Trump-Gingrich ticket because you would provide him with the working knowledge of Congress, which he doesn't have. You're also a conservative with bona fides that he doesn't have. So it would make sense.
And you'd have 2 unusual heads of hair. So, I mean, how much
your
more
head of hair, that's pretty standard. Okay. And, you know, Floyd the barber, he cuts your hair, doesn't he? The guy that used to be in Mayberry, doesn't he come down?
Right. He retired to cut hair here in McLean.
Now, and I don't want to be bold and fresh here, even though that's my description. You know a lot more about policy than Donald Trump knows. With that, you know, with the VP.
Well, look, there are a lot of very good candidates that know a great deal, and he's been very clear that he wants an insider because he understands that while he's done an amazing job arousing the country, building a real movement, to get things done in Washington, as he proved in the visit yesterday, you got to sit down and talk to the legislators. You got to work out a strategy. But he's got a number of talented people he could call on. You know, so I think the list is I don't know who's on the list.
I know pretty much who's on the list. I think you're going to get it. I think that he's going to choose you. I mean, this is, again, I'm making this not based on any inside information. I want the audience to know. I don't know that. Nobody has said that to me. But I do know who he's considering just by a deduction. And I think he will select you. And I think Rudy Giuliani, he's going to say he's going to be Homeland Security guy. Chris Christie going to be Attorney General. Ben Carson's going to be Health and Human Services. So he's going to go into the Cleveland Convention with his whole crew, which is going to mollify the Republican establishment because you are the Republican establishment, are you not?
Well, I was once Speaker of the House, and I've been around for a long time, but I think I've always been a little bit of an outsider in terms of the traditional kind of establishment.
Well, you're outspoken in that way. You're not a spinmeister. Were you surprised that Ryan, the current Speaker, didn't endorse Trump after he won Indiana? Were you surprised about that?
Yeah, I was surprised, and I said at the time I thought it was a mistake for Paul to do that. I'm glad they had the meeting yesterday. I think it looks like things are coming together. But I think, you know, when you're the Speaker of the House, you speak for the whole conference, and I thought that was a little bit of a mistake. I think he could have communicated privately everything he wanted to. On the other hand, the truth is they do have some very different policy issues.
Sure, absolutely.
And they're going to have to work them out over time.
Particularly on trade.
Right.
There's a big gap on trade. Final question. We talked to Congressman Gohmert yesterday, and he said, look, I'm not going to support Trump until he apologizes to Ted Cruz for calling him a liar and other people for demeaning them. Did that bother you when Trump did that?
I think Trump's standard style is to be very aggressive and very direct. And by the way, the first person who called Ted Cruz a liar was Marco Rubio. You go back and look at the debates, it was Rubio and Cruz who were saying each other was lying about their votes in the Senate long before Trump picked it up.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Trump has a style that is uniquely his, and it's gotten him the nomination in a way that is truly historic. And I predict that Louis Gohmert, who I know well, when he's confronted with Hillary Clinton, is going to enthusiastically be for Donald Trump.
All right. Mr. Speaker, you've always been straight with us, and we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Good being with you, Bill.